Part of the reason we want to record these guys is for people that can't make it to these, also for new employees that we hire, to be able to have an opportunity to watch some training videos. We want to help you guys as much as possible so that we can get the right information into our system. I understand that there are some territories that we have that pricing is a little rough. Vail is probably the best example of that. I do believe that there are areas that Xactimate pricing can't be that far off. And so what that leads us to, and I've talked to Matt a lot about this, is we're missing some of the details. Water is easy. It's easy because I just have to say that I removed base. I removed the drywall. I don't have to think about those details. So today we're going to be talking about drywall and texture. What are some of those details that you guys need to tell us? What might you have a question on? And guys, as you're in this field, if you're at a job, okay, and you look at something and you don't know what it is, take a picture of it. Send it to Matt, send it to me, send it to somebody. One thing that we used to not have that we have today is we have Google Image. Google Image can help us find out what we're looking at. But we need to know what we're doing. What kind of texture am I dealing with on this wall? Is it a 1/2-inch drywall? Okay, so what do we have? Xactimate has a lot of different line items. When Xactimate started 20, 30 years ago, they had one line item for drywall. Now they have hundreds. We have 1/2-inch drywall. We have 1/4-inch drywall, 3/8 drywall, which is mainly your mobile homes. We have 5/8 drywall. So knowing those different pieces matters. I can generally guess what size the drywall is in a residential home versus a garage. Garages are usually going to be 5/8. Interior of a home is usually going to be 1/2 inch. You might have a home that has 1/2-inch drywall, 5/8 on the ceiling. We don't know all of that stuff by looking at a Matterport. So it's important that when you guys are giving us a scope or talking to us about stuff, we need to know these details. The better the details are, the better we can help influence that estimate. Okay? There were 2 estimates this week that we influenced the numbers on, that after they got rejected, I came back through them and found we really didn't need to influence the numbers. They weren't Vail, by the way, Galen. We know Vail's an issue. Okay. But in other territories, why are we influencing these numbers if we can get the right details? All right. So drywall. Okay. What size of drywall do we have? Is it a water rock? That's important. It pays differently, guys. These little things, if you tell me a 1/2-inch drywall in a bathroom, I'm going to put a 1/2-inch drywall in the bathroom. The 1/2-inch water rock, it's going to pay a little differently. We want to know this stuff so that we can make sure that you guys have it in there. What kind of texture are we dealing with? If you don't know the difference between like an orange peel, a knockdown, an acoustic, familiarize yourself with that. Orange peel is your general texture that you're going to see in a cookie cutter home. Same with knockdown. Really, knockdown is just, it's orange peel and then they take a knife and they blade it so that it goes flat. Okay. Is it a heavy hand texture or a light hand texture? Do you know what we have to do with those? If you're dealing with a hand texture, a skip trowel, something that's got a fancy pattern to it, can you match that? Can that drywaller match that? Galen would tell you 100% of the time, no. I would tend to believe that. Are there some pretty talented drywallers out there that could probably match it? There are. Do we have them? Probably not. Galen might have somebody that's super damn expensive in Vail. Is that really what the adjuster wants? No. So we might have to skim coat that entire wall just to get the texture to blend properly. These are the things we have to think about when we're scoping these losses for drywall and texture. If you look at that and you're like, man, I don't know that we could blend this, that's a conversation you need to have right up front with the adjuster. I'm not sure that this is going to be able to blend properly. Why do we want to do that? Because that adjuster is going to push back and say, well, I think you can blend it. Okay, well, Mr. Adjuster, I'm going to tell you now, if I can't blend it and the customer's not happy with the end result, we're going to have to skim coat this entire wall and retexture the entire wall. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you that we should do right now, I'm asking for. Are you okay with that? Because I'm going to be charging for it. I'm giving it to you now. If you don't have that conversation, then you're kind of assuming the risk. I like to use the word attempt. We will attempt to blend this texture. You can use that for orange peel. You can use that for knockdown. We can put an F9 note in there. Okay. I will attempt to blend this. What else goes along with this? There's actually a line item in Xactimate you guys might hear us say every once in a while. It's called Patch J. Adding new to existing drywall. Okay. There's another line item in Xactimate that's replacing the drywall by the linear foot up to 2 feet high, up to 4 feet high. Those pay differently. I found years ago that if I put into the square footage of the drywall and use the Patch J, it pays better. For the linear footage side, which adjusters love to use, it's actually included in that line item and you lose a lot of money. How many linear feet of that? Matt?
Does it pay differently to patch a ceiling versus a wall?
Oh, dude, that's a fantastic question. Yes. I was going to throw it out at the audience here, but yes, it does. Guys, you need to think about this. And I know this is weird to think about, and eventually you'll understand this more as you see more of it. If you patch a ceiling, you got to skim that whole ceiling and retexture the whole ceiling. It will flash. 100% of the light hits a ceiling differently than it does a wall. It's easier to blend texture 3 feet up a wall that you can't see because of how the light hits it. I promise you, you do it on a ceiling, you'll see it every damn time. Now, if they've had previous patches, the adjuster might say, they have other patches, you can see them, I'm not doing that. At that point, instead of being a jerk, he should make the customer happy, but he's not wrong. So you might get stuck there. But I would certainly go for it and say, hey, I got to redo this because you're going to be able to see my patch. It wasn't there before, so it's not pre-loss condition. That's the best argument you can have there. But, man, guys, you touch a ceiling drywall, corner to corner. What else might you run into in a ceiling? Okay, I've seen our guys, sometimes they'll give you a couple inches. That's fine. You can tape to that. But if you're taping to that wall, that ceiling connects, you now have to texture some of that wall because you have a tape joint that you're going to have to put on there. Can that be blended? Genuinely speaking, I would say yes. We usually try and do the ceiling and then I do texture down 1 foot. But if we're talking about a hand texture, might be a little trickier. Depends on what kind of hand texture it is, how much smooth surface I have. Let's talk about some other type of texture here. You guys might see this in commercial losses. Okay, you'll walk in, it might be a smooth coat, level 5 finish or whatever. How many times do I have to coat that wall for it to blend and look even and uniform? Okay, I encourage you guys, when you're looking at a commercial loft that's got smooth texture, take a picture of the edge. you'll see how much compound is sticking out from that drywall. It's not going to tell you how many layers it's going to take. I mean, it could. You could say, hey, dude, like, here's a picture. Here's your drywall. Here's a picture of this. How many layers do you think that's going to take you? Level 5 finish is one of the most challenging finishes that you have because they have to shine a light on it to see if there's any waves. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that happen. I think Galen has a few times because there's quite a bit in Vail. But there's a slight deflection of it, you're skimming that whole wall again. It is a pain. You might also look at it and go, oh, there's texture on this. Look carefully because it might be rolled paint, which is creating the texture. It's still a smooth texture. There's a lot more to think about, guys, in you guys' role as opposed to water. These are all the things that I have to go through in my head when I'm looking at photos, when I'm looking at your guys' scopes. All these little intricate details matter. Is it a corner bead or is it a bullnose corner? A bullnose corner? Where are you stopping the texture? You gonna stop it right on that corner? Probably not. Especially if you had to replace the whole bullnose corner, you're going around it. By the way, I would recommend the water team won't. They will cut it to what the wall is. I'd recommend pulling that whole strip. It's different than doing an actual corner bead because if I don't know if you guys have seen it, but corner bead, you can fix it and you can get it to pretty much line up at the corner because it's a straight 90-degree angle. Bullnose tends to, when you cut it, tends to flare at the top like this. And it's harder to get it to bend back around that corner and line up. You usually can end up seeing a bulge where that's repaired. You might talk to the adjuster and say, I want to replace this entire piece so that it looks correct, uniform, pre-loss condition. You already have to texture around that corner. You're already going to have to paint that wall. That stuff matters. What's behind the wall? What's going on with the wall? How much shims do I have to use? What kind of labor does that inflict? Okay. Here's a good one. Acoustic ceiling texture. How, Matt?
No, keep going on acoustic and I'll ask the question after.
Yeah. Acoustic ceiling texture. How many times have we been in the house that was done in the 70s? What do you see? Glitter? Little speckles of glitter. Funny enough, that adds 15 cents in Vail per square foot to that acoustic line item. Details in reconstruction are what matters because if we can get these details right, guys, the intent would be that we don't have to influence Xactimate as much. I'm not saying that sometimes Xactimate's not going to be off, but if we can encompass our entire project, right? Let's say that we know that it's going to cost us to hit our margin. We have to be at X. The estimate has to be at $70,000. Regardless of the line items that get in there to get to $70,000, bam, we're there. We can do that job at a 40% margin and not have to influence all these numbers. Conversation might change with the customer where you're saying, listen, I'm looking at this as an encompassing thing, not every little intricate detail within these line items. We're going to get you back to pre-loss condition for $70,000. Right? If I don't have to influence Xactimate, guess what? You're going to have an easier time with your adjusters, faster approvals, and you're going to have more work. You're going to increase your revenue. That's huge. Okay? Details matter. Matt.
So, there's there's so many different kinds of texture if you're troweling on drywall. So how do you account for different degrees of like custom texture, if you want to call it that, a wave or whatever different types are?
So Xactimate does not go into that finite detail, okay? But I would encourage you guys is to think about it. What is it going to take? Okay, most hand textures have to start with a smooth coat. Think about that. How many times have we said, hey, that's a light hand texture? Smooth coat should go in there with it if it's actually a light hand texture. There's likely 2 layers, the smooth coat, then your hand texture, because they got to smooth the wall out first and then do it. Okay, it's not your first piece. 1 second, Jamie. Same thing for heavy hand. You might have a couple of coats. Learn from your drywallers on this stuff, guys. Ask them what it's going to take to do this type of texture. Not only is that going to give you experience, but it's also going to help you with your scope. And the next time you run into that texture, you're going to be able to look like the badass to the customer. You're going to go and you're going to go, oh, yeah, I mean, this is a such and such texture. Generally, what this has to happen is we'll have to smooth coat this, we'll have to sand it, then we got to do another coat so that it matches up as close as possible. Then we got to do. You're going to look like the expert. Just learn from your drywaller on some of this stuff and how it's done.
So if it looks particularly complex or unique, note that in the scope sheet to say, hey, take a look at the Matterport. This is different. It's gonna clearly take more steps, and it's not just kind of easy to describe. And that's the best way to tip off Colin that you've got something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, hand texture is easier for us to see on Matterport than like orange peel and knockdown, just so you guys know. It gets a little blurry. But again, the more information you can provide, the better. Jamie, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah. So for example, like on a crow's foot or like a brocade knockdown, would you want us to put light hand and heavy hand, since because you're saying this is probably going to have to get that smooth finish? So put both of them?
I probably would. I'd put as much shit in there as I could to see what I could get to stick. But again, part of it, guys, is you got to make sure you talk to your adjuster. Whoever that person is, whether it's CX or it's the project manager, you got to. I have always said this, guys. I think that insurance adjusters should have a minimum of at least 1 year experience in the construction industry to understand what it is that we have to go through. Most of them do not. Okay, including my dad, who worked for American Family for about 20 years. Now, he learned a lot of things because I trained him on a lot of different things as well. And so, he was a really good adjuster, so he wanted to learn. Some adjusters are not like that. They're sitting behind a desk, and they want to tell you that you can do your job without that many layers. You guys have to tell them, no, that's just not true. We're going to have to do it this way. How do we work toward getting to accomplish this pre-loss condition? One of the words that I use, guys, when I'm talking to adjusters is I'll say, Mr. Adjuster, in order for me to be successful in bringing this back to pre-loss condition, this is what's required. Think about that. I'm telling him that for me to be successful in bringing it back to pre-loss condition. Okay. If they say, well, I don't think you need to do that. Okay. Do you not want me to be successful, or do you not owe for pre-loss condition? This is what I need to bring it back to pre-loss condition. If you don't owe for pre-loss condition, tell me now so I can talk to the customer, because this is the way it's got to be done.
So I guess maybe.
And there's a nice way of putting that.
Sorry. I guess
no, you're kidding.
A rule is when they're filling out the scope forms, just add more commentary. The more, the better, to help characterize the situation if there's anything unique, and then just more information. If you minimize the information when you're defining it in the scope sheet, you're just going to leave Ryan to kind of have to pick one of the options. But if you give them a bunch of details, then you can give them a better chance of giving you the best estimate.
When you guys send in a template,
10 minutes. So keep going.
yep, got you. When you guys send in a template, you have two options now, by the way: reconstruction project and audit reconstruction. Okay, make sure we're selecting the correct one. These ones are going to be highly tinted by a lot of different eyes, including mine, Matt, James, Seth. Okay, the C, I believe, is also part of that. I think there's other people, but when you guys are doing this, there's a line right here. Any items to add to estimate not listed in the scope. If you need to give us some commentary on something, you can do it right here. You can tell me everything that you need to tell me about that texture, about whatever you want that's not sitting within that scope form. I'll read it. Colin will read it. We will find a way to make some money out of it. So, use it. I want to go back to one other thing here while we have time, guys. I want to remind everybody, we might be able to flip a mitigation to a reconstruction. We talked about this in Denver. That is the bones. You've got to give me the meat. We're talking about the meat today. These details are the meat to put on these bones. And I promise you guys, if we can work to getting these details, and we're going to do this consistently, Matt and I have agreed to do this type of training on different subjects. If we can get really good at this and we can not utilize the changes to labor pricing in the components, you guys are going to sell more work. You're going to have more work. I promise. Okay. I will tell you, and I'm not sure when it's happening. Matt and I are working through it. Materials like drywall textures, things like that. I get that pricing in Vail might be different than pricing in Albuquerque. Well, I know it is, but whatever. You get my point. We have now in Xactimate what is called direct supplier. Once we have our account set up with Home Depot for our company, we'll be able to send those estimates to the direct supplier, Home Depot. They'll be able to give us pricing consistent with your location so that we can actually update the component pricing, of which you'll be able to pass that from Home Depot over to the adjuster and say, we had to adjust the component pricing for the materials. Home Depot sent us this. Here you go. That's why the pricing is a little different. We didn't mess with the labor, we messed with the component of the materials. And by doing that, that'll help you guys achieve that. Now, here's the great thing. They're going to send you the retail rate. Because we'll be a vendor of Home Depot and have a national account with them, we should be receiving discount. They will not send that so that you have to send it to the adjuster. They're going to send you the retail, so you're going to send that to the adjuster, and then our discount on top of that, so that you make a little more margin. So, but the details matter. If we don't have the right stuff in our estimate, your components are going to be off. The pricing is still going to be off. Details matter.
Ryan, we got about 5
else?
minutes,
Yeah.
so we leave a couple minutes for questions from the group. I think
Yeah.
Most common mistakes or most common omissions. What are some of the things that you see that may impact our drywall estimates the most?
I think it goes to just how many layers we're going to need to put onto the more heavy hand texture. Orange peel, knockdown, that stuff is pretty standard. You're not going to be adding a layer of skim coat. It's not generally required. One other piece, guys, that comes to mind when it comes to drywall and texture, and just when it comes to what we do, is the painting side of things. Technically speaking, the manufacturer says that the surface has to be dust-free. We should be cleaning the walls before we're actually painting them. Adjusters hate that shit. But we got to find a way sometimes to tell them, like, but the manufacturer tells me I have to. Linda.
I just wanted to share one of the line items that I was able to get through State Farm audit is the dry patch J line item that not always gets approved through audit. I put an F9 note specifying or explaining that I needed backing for drywall cuts that were not made straight or like on a stud, and it went through. And that's like a really good line item that pays good on the estimates.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is just a program issue, in my opinion. Of the reason they select us to not do things is because they know it gets us paid. That's what makes us money. It blows my mind that corporate would agree to some of those things, but that's just the way it goes.
No, just
I
wanted to
like
see
it,
if
but
possible to make it
I
through.
think that's, yeah, anytime we have something that we can share that you're getting success through audits and things like that, certainly bring it up. Certainly bring it up. What other questions might we have, folks?
I run into a lot of 3/8 drywall with wallpaper that's glued to the wall, to the studs.
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll I just need to get you guys all that info on.
Okay, so they're not here.
Yeah, I mean, here's ultimately this is what goes through my head when you say I have wallpaper glued down 3/8. I mean, dude, that's gonna be a bitch, first off, because you're gonna have to pull that wallpaper back, likely off, and you can't skim coat over top of wallpaper adhesive. It'll bubble, it'll blister is what they call it. So then you gotta have a stripper, then you can seal it, and then you can re-wallpaper it. I mean, there's so many things that go wrong with that. My opinion, you might even talk to the adjuster and say, listen, by the time I take this wallpaper off, strip the adhesive, seal the drywall, so on and so forth, to put new wallpaper on here, it would be cheaper for us just to pull the entire wall down, put up new drywall, and do texture.
Wow. Okay. And pretty much 100% of the customers just want to texture and paint it. They don't want to go
Most
back
of the time.
to wallpaper.
It would pay a lot more to do the latter, but now you're playing this role of like, I'm trying to give you the most cost-effective way of doing this. Right? Like, I can do this, but then I got to pull this wallpaper off, because even if I pull this up a little bit just to fire tape the drywall, am I going to be able to blend that wallpaper that's been cut? No. I'm going to have to pull all that off. I got to strip it. I got to seal it so that it doesn't blister. Then I got to put new wallpaper down. By the time I do all of that, it's going to be more than what it's going to cost for me just to take the wall down, put up a new wall, fresh drywall, and do an orange peel or a knockdown texture.
Okay. That's good info, because I run into that a lot.
Thanks.
I mean, if you have a customer that wants wallpaper, though, you're stuck, and so is the insurance. But if you say, hey, I think I can talk the customer into doing this, and it's going to save you guys some money, now you're playing a different game.
So we're
building that relationship.
We're right at time, and I want to kind of keep these things tight on the 30 minutes. So the recording's digestible, and I'll publish a schedule further out for other topics. I think this is a good start. And Ryan, thanks for hosting and sharing your feedback and expertise. We'll keep the series going. And I think, in the future, we'll probably throw some examples and look at maybe some of the details and exactament that might help with the visual part of this. So
sure.
Thanks, everyone.
I had it open while I was talking about it just so I could make sure I hit some stuff. So certainly next time we can share the screen.
Sure. Okay. Great. Thanks again, Ryan. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Matt.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay.